Whispers in the Wilderness Chapter 1. The Invitation. Sarah's fingers trembled as she held the aged envelope, its edges frayed and yellowed with time. The postmark was smudged, making it impossible to discern its origin. The only clear detail was her name, written in an elegant, old-fashioned script. Beside her, on the kitchen table, lay 3 identical envelopes addressed to Neil, Clara, and Leo. She carefully opened the seal, revealing a single sheet of parchment. The paper felt ancient beneath her fingertips, and the scent of old ink wafted up to her. The message was brief. To the chosen, the vast wilderness of Big Bend National Park awaits your presence. Come and uncover its secrets, if you dare. Arrive at the northern entrance by dusk on the 15th of this month. Yours, a friend from the past. Sarah's heart raced. This had to be some sort of prank. She reached for her phone and dialed Neil. He answered on the second ring. "Did you get a weird letter too?" he asked before she could speak. "Yes," she replied, her voice shaky. "Do you think it's some sort of joke?" Neil paused. "I don't know. But Clara and Leo got them too. We're all meeting up at Leo's place in an hour." "You coming?" Sarah hesitated. The invitation was unsettling, but her curiosity was piqued. "Yeah, I'll be there." Leo's apartment was dimly lit, the atmosphere thick with tension. The 4 friends sat in a circle, the mysterious letters spread out before them. "It's got to be a prank," Clara said, her voice filled with skepticism. "I mean, a friend from the past." "Really?" Leo frowned, his fingers tracing the elegant script of his letter. "It's not any handwriting I recognize. And the paper, it's like it's centuries old." Sarah shivered, recalling the cold touch of the parchment. What if it's genuine? What if someone from our past, maybe a distant relative or ancestor, is reaching out to us? Neil scoffed. "Come on, Sarah. Ghosts sending letters now? You've been watching too many horror movies." She shot him a glare. "I'm just saying, there's something about this that feels real." "And the mention of Big Bend? It's too specific to be a random choice." Leo leaned forward, his eyes intense. "I've always wanted to visit Big Bend. The vast landscapes, the isolation. It's a dream destination for a photographer like me." Clara sighed. "So, what? We're just going to pack up and head to some national park because of some cryptic letters?" Sarah nodded. "I think we should. If it's a prank, we'll have a good laugh and a fun camping trip. If it's not, well, then we'll discover the truth." Neil looked between his friends, his skepticism warring with curiosity. "All right, fine. But if I get eaten by a bear or something, I'm haunting all of you." The group chuckled, the tension in the room dissipating. They spent the next hour planning their trip, the excitement building. The day of the journey arrived faster than Sarah had anticipated. The 4 friends met up early, their cars packed with camping gear. The drive to Big Bend was long, the landscape changing from bustling cityscapes to vast, open wilderness. As they neared the park, the sun began its descent, casting long shadows across the road. The beauty of the landscape was undeniable, but there was also an undeniable eeriness to it. The vastness of the park, combined with the approaching darkness, made Sarah feel small and vulnerable. They reached the northern entrance just as the last light of day faded. The entrance was deserted, the ranger's booth empty. A cold wind blew, rustling the trees and making the shadows dance. The group set up camp in a clearing, the silence of the wilderness surrounding them. As they lit a campfire, Sarah couldn't shake off the feeling of being watched. Every rustle of the leaves, every snap of a twig, made her heart race. As the night deepened, the group huddled around the campfire, the warmth a stark contrast to the coldness around them. Sarah was about to suggest turning in for the night when Neil's voice broke the silence. "Hey, look at this," he said, holding up an old, worn-out journal he'd found near their campsite. Curiosity piqued. The group gathered around as Neil opened the journal. The entries were dated years ago, the ink faded but still legible. The writer spoke of the beauty of Big Bend, the peace and tranquility it offered. But as the entries progressed, the tone changed. The writer spoke of feeling watched, of seeing shadowy figures in the periphery of their vision. The last entry was the most chilling. It read, "They are here. The shadows. They watch, they follow. I can hear them whispering, their voices like the wind. I must leave, before it's too late." The entry ended abruptly, the next pages blank. The group sat in stunned silence, the weight of the words sinking in. The crackling of the fire was the only sound, its light casting eerie shadows on their faces. Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. The legends, the invitation, the journal. It all pointed to something sinister lurking in the wilderness of Big Bend. As the group settled into their tents, Sarah lay awake, listening to the sounds of the night. Every rustle, every whisper of the wind, felt like a warning. The adventure had only just begun, and Sarah couldn't shake off the feeling that they were not alone in the vast wilderness of Big Bend. Chapter 2. Arrival at dusk. The first rays of dawn were replaced by the muted hues of twilight as the group ventured deeper into Big Bend. The vast expanse of the park stretched endlessly, its beauty both mesmerizing and intimidating. The setting sun painted the sky in shades of orange and pink, casting long shadows that seemed to dance with the wind. Sarah drove the lead car, with Neil beside her navigating with an old map they'd found at the entrance. Behind them, Leo's car followed, with Clara keeping a keen eye on their surroundings. The dirt road they were on seemed to have been untouched for years, winding its way through dense forests and open plains. As the light continued to fade, Sarah's unease grew. Every rustle of the leaves, every distant animal call, seemed amplified in the growing darkness. She could feel the weight of the wilderness around them, its vastness pressing in from all sides. "We should find a place to set up camp soon," Neil murmured, his eyes scanning the map. "There's a clearing up ahead that might be suitable." Sarah nodded, her grip on the steering wheel tightening. The events of the previous night played in her mind, the mysterious letter, the old journal, the feeling of being watched. She shook her head, trying to dispel the growing sense of dread. The clearing Neil had mentioned soon came into view. It was a large, open space surrounded by tall trees, their branches swaying gently in the breeze. The ground was covered in soft grass, the perfect spot to set up their tents. The two cars pulled up side by side, and the group quickly got to work. Tents were pitched, a campfire was lit, and soon, the clearing was bathed in the warm glow of the flames. As the night deepened, the group gathered around the campfire, the warmth a welcome respite from the cold. Leo pulled out his guitar, strumming a soft tune that echoed in the stillness of the night. Clara's voice joined in, her melodic tones weaving a spell around them. For a moment, the worries of the day faded, replaced by the simple joy of music and camaraderie. But as the last notes died away, a new sound filled the air. A soft rustling, coming from the edge of the clearing. Sarah's heart raced as she strained her ears, trying to pinpoint the source. Did you hear that? She whispered, her eyes darting around. Neil nodded, his face pale. It sounded like footsteps. The group fell silent, listening intently. The rustling grew louder, closer. And then, just as suddenly, it stopped. Leo stood up, his camera in hand. "I'm going to check it out," he said, his voice steady. Sarah grabbed his arm, her eyes wide with fear. "Are you crazy? We don't know what's out there." Leo shook his head, determination in his eyes. "We can't just sit here. We need to know." With that, he ventured to the edge of the clearing, his camera's flashlight cutting through the darkness. The rest of the group watched, holding their breath. Minutes passed, feeling like hours. And then, Leo returned, his face ashen. There's something out there," he whispered, his voice shaking. "I saw a shadow, moving between the trees. It was watching us." The group exchanged worried glances, the weight of their situation sinking in. They were in the middle of a vast wilderness, with no way of knowing what lurked in the shadows. "We need to stay together," Clara said, her voice firm. "Whatever it is, we're safer as a group." The night wore on, the group huddled close to the campfire. Every sound, every movement, sent their hearts racing. But as the hours passed, the fear began to ebb, replaced by exhaustion. One by one, the group drifted off to sleep, the warmth of the fire lulling them into a restless slumber. Sarah was the last to fall asleep, her mind racing with thoughts of the shadowy figure. She pulled her sleeping bag closer, trying to shake off the cold that seemed to seep into her bones. But just as she was about to drift off, a soft whisper reached her ears. A voice, so faint she could barely make out the words. "Come. Come to me." Sarah's eyes snapped open, her heart pounding in her chest. She looked around, but the clearing was empty, the campfire reduced to glowing embers. She lay still, listening intently. But the voice was gone, replaced by the soft sounds of the night. With a shiver, Sarah pulled her sleeping bag over her head, trying to block out the fear that threatened to consume her. But as she closed her eyes, one thought echoed in her mind. They were not alone in the wilderness of Big Bend. And whatever was out there was watching, waiting. Chapter 3. The Journal's Tale. The first light of dawn painted the sky in soft pastels, casting a gentle glow over the clearing. The campfire had long since died out, leaving behind a pile of ash and charred wood. The tents stood silent, their occupants lost in deep slumber. Sarah was the first to wake, the events of the previous night weighing heavily on her mind. She sat up, rubbing her eyes, and glanced around the campsite. Everything seemed normal, the eerie atmosphere of the night replaced by the calm serenity of the morning. She stepped out of her tent, stretching her limbs and taking in a deep breath of fresh air. The beauty of the wilderness was undeniable, but the sense of unease from the night before still lingered. As she walked around the campsite, her eyes fell on the old journal that Neil had found. Curiosity piqued. She picked it up, flipping through its worn pages. The journal was filled with neat handwriting, the ink faded with time. The entries spoke of the beauty of Big Bend, the writer's love for the wilderness evident in every word. But as Sarah read on, the tone of the entries began to change. Day 5. I can't shake off the feeling of being watched. Every time I venture into the woods, I feel eyes on me, tracking my every move. I've tried to dismiss it as mere paranoia, but the feeling persists. Day 7. The whispers have started. Soft, faint voices that seem to come from the trees themselves. I can't make out the words, but the tone is unmistakable. They're calling to me, beckoning me deeper into the forest. Day 10. I saw them today. Shadowy figures, lurking at the edge of my vision. They watch, they wait. I don't know what they want, but I can feel their presence, growing stronger with each passing day. Sarah's heart raced as she read the entries, the weight of the situation sinking in. She flipped to the last entry, her hands trembling. Day 15. I can't stay here any longer. The shadows are closing in, their whispers growing louder, more insistent. I must leave, before it's too late. If anyone finds this journal, know that the legends are true. The spirits of Big Bend are real, and they are watching. The entry ended abruptly, the next page is blank. Sarah sat back, the journal clutched tightly in her hands. The writer's words echoed in her mind, confirming her worst fears. The rest of the group began to stir, the sounds of the campsite coming to life. Sarah quickly hid the journal, not wanting to alarm the others. But as they gathered around the remnants of the campfire, she could see the same fear reflected in their eyes. Leo was the first to speak, his voice shaky. We can't stay here. Whatever is out there, it's getting closer. Clara nodded in agreement, her face pale. We need to leave, now. Neil looked around, his eyes darting to the edge of the clearing. We can't just leave. We need to find out what's going on. We need answers. Sarah took a deep breath, her resolve strengthening. We'll leave at first light. But first, we need to know what we're up against. She pulled out the journal, showing it to the group. This belonged to a previous camper. They experienced the same things we did. The shadows, the whispers. We're not alone in this. The group exchanged worried glances, the weight of the situation sinking in. They were in the middle of a vast wilderness, with no way of knowing what lurked in the shadows. As the day wore on, the group packed up their belongings, preparing to leave. But as they ventured deeper into the forest, the sense of unease grew. Every rustle of the leaves, every distant animal call, seemed amplified in the stillness of the woods. The shadows seemed to close in, their presence palpable. The whispers grew louder, more insistent, their voices echoing in the stillness of the forest. Sarah clutched the journal tightly, her eyes darting around. The legends were true. The spirits of Big Bend were real, and they were watching. As night fell, the group made camp, the darkness pressing in from all sides. The campfire provided a small respite, its warmth a welcome contrast to the coldness of the night. But as the hours passed, the fear began to ebb, replaced by exhaustion. One by one, the group drifted off to sleep, the warmth of the fire lulling them into a restless slumber. Sarah was the last to fall asleep, her mind racing with thoughts of the shadowy figures. She pulled her sleeping bag closer, trying to shake off the cold that seemed to seep into her bones. But just as she was about to drift off, a soft whisper reached her ears. A voice, so faint she could barely make out the words. Come. Come to me. Sarah's eyes snapped open, her heart pounding in her chest. She looked around, but the clearing was empty, the campfire reduced to glowing embers. She lay still, listening intently. But the voice was gone, replaced by the soft sounds of the night. With a shiver, Sarah pulled her sleeping bag over her head, trying to block out the fear that threatened to consume her. But as she closed her eyes, one thought echoed in her mind. They were not alone in the wilderness of Big Bend. And whatever was out there was watching, waiting. Chapter 4. Echoes in the night. The moon hung high in the sky, casting a silvery glow over the campsite. The embers of the campfire glowed faintly, their warmth long gone. The tent stood silent, their occupants lost in a fitful sleep. Except for Leo. He lay in his tent, eyes wide open, listening to the sounds of the night. The soft rustling of the leaves, the distant hoot of an owl, the gentle whisper of the wind. But beneath it all, there was another sound. A soft, rhythmic echo that seemed to come from the very heart of the forest. Leo's heart raced as he strained his ears, trying to pinpoint the source. It was faint, barely audible, but unmistakable. Footsteps. He sat up, his hand reaching for the flashlight beside him. The beam cut through the darkness, revealing the empty clearing. But the footsteps continued, growing louder, closer. Leo's mind raced. Who could be out there, in the middle of the night? The legends spoke of shadowy figures, spirits of the forest that watched and waited. But this was different. These footsteps were real, tangible. He slowly unzipped his tent, the sound deafening in the stillness of the night. He stepped out, the cold air sending a shiver down his spine. The footsteps were now unmistakable, echoing through the trees. Leo's flashlight beam darted around, searching for the source. And then, he saw it. A shadowy figure, standing at the edge of the clearing. It was tall, its form indistinct, but its eyes glowed with an eerie light. Leo's breath caught in his throat. The legends were true. The spirits of Big Bend were real. The figure stood still, watching him. And then, it spoke. Its voice was soft, barely a whisper, but it sent a chill down Leo's spine. "Why have you come here?" Leo swallowed hard, his voice shaky. We received an invitation. We wanted to uncover the secrets of Big Bend." The figure was silent for a moment, its glowing eyes fixed on him. And then, it spoke again. "You are not the first to seek the truth. But be warned, the secrets of Big Bend are not to be taken lightly." Leo nodded, his heart racing. "We understand. We just want to know the truth." The figure seemed to consider his words. And then, it began to fade, its form becoming indistinct, its voice a mere echo. "Seek the truth, but be prepared for the consequences. The spirits of Big Bend are watching." And with that, it was gone, leaving Leo alone in the clearing. He stood still for a moment, trying to process what had just happened. The legends were true. The spirits of Big Bend were real, and they were watching. Leo slowly made his way back to his tent, his mind racing. He needed to tell the others, to warn them of the dangers that lay ahead. But as he lay down, sleep quickly overtook him, the events of the night fading into a distant memory. The next morning, the campsite was abuzz with activity. The group gathered around the remnants of the campfire, discussing the events of the previous night. Leo recounted his encounter with the shadowy figure, his voice filled with awe. The group listened in rapt attention, the weight of the situation sinking in. Sarah spoke up, her voice shaky. "We need to be careful. The spirits of Big Bend are real, and they are watching." Neil nodded in agreement. "We need to stick together, to watch each other's backs. We can't let our guard down." Clara looked around, her eyes darting to the edge of the clearing. "We need to find out what's going on. We need answers." The group nodded in agreement, their resolve strengthening. They would uncover the secrets of Big Bend, no matter the cost. As the day wore on, the group ventured deeper into the forest, the sense of unease growing with each step. The shadows seemed to close in, their presence palpable. But the group pressed on, determined to uncover the truth. They would not be deterred, not by the spirits of Big Bend, not by the legends that spoke of danger. For they were on a quest for the truth, and nothing would stand in their way. Chapter 5. The Forgotten Path. The dense canopy above filtered the sunlight, casting dappled shadows on the forest floor. The group moved cautiously, the underbrush crunching softly underfoot. The deeper they ventured into Big Bend, the more the forest seemed to close in around them, its towering trees and thick foliage creating a world removed from the outside. Sarah led the way, the old journal from the previous camper clutched tightly in her hand. Every so often, she'd pause to consult its worn pages, searching for any clues that might guide their path. "We're looking for a landmark," she murmured, her finger tracing a passage in the journal. The writer mentions a stone circle several times. It's said to be a place of power, where the spirits of Big Bend are most active. Neil, ever the skeptic, raised an eyebrow. A stone circle? Sounds like something out of a fairy tale. Sarah shot him a pointed look. This entire trip feels like something out of a fairy tale. Or a nightmare. The group continued on, the forest around them growing denser with each step. The air was thick with tension, every rustle of the leaves, every distant bird call, amplifying their unease. It was Clara who spotted it first. "Over there," she whispered, pointing to a break in the trees. The group quickened their pace, emerging into a clearing dominated by a large circle of ancient stones. Moss and vines had overtaken many of them, but their deliberate placement was unmistakable. The stone circle was eerily silent, the atmosphere thick with a sense of waiting. The group moved closer, their footsteps echoing softly. Leo, ever the photographer, began snapping pictures, his camera capturing the haunting beauty of the scene. But as he focused on one particular stone, his face paled. "Guys," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Look at this." The group gathered around, staring at the camera's display. The image showed the stone, but beside it stood a shadowy figure, its form indistinct but its eyes glowing with an eerie light. The realization hit them like a ton of bricks. They were not alone. Sarah clutched the journal tighter, her eyes scanning the pages. "There's a ritual," she said, her voice shaky. "A way to communicate with the spirits of Big Bend. But it's dangerous. The writer warns that if it's not done correctly, the spirits can become hostile." Clara swallowed hard. "What do we need to do?" Sarah took a deep breath. "We need to form a circle, joining hands. One person must stand in the center, acting as a conduit for the spirits. They'll ask a question, and the spirits will answer." Neil looked skeptical. "And you believe this will work?" Sarah met his gaze, determination in her eyes. "It's our best shot at getting answers." The group hesitated for a moment, the weight of the situation sinking in. But one by one, they moved into position, forming a circle around the central stone. Sarah took her place in the center, the journal open before her. She began to recite the words written on the page, her voice echoing in the stillness of the clearing. The air grew colder, the atmosphere thickening. The group tightened their grip on each other's hands, their breath visible in the chill. And then, it began. A soft whisper, barely audible, filled the air. It grew louder, more insistent, a cacophony of voices all speaking at once. Sarah's voice rose above the din, her words clear and commanding. "Spirits of Big Bend, we seek answers. Why have you called us here?" The voices fell silent, the clearing eerily still. And then, a single voice spoke, its tone ancient and wise. You have trespassed on sacred ground. The secrets of Big Bend are not for the living to know. Sarah's heart raced, her mind searching for the right words. We mean no harm. We only seek the truth. The voice was silent for a moment, considering her words. And then, it spoke again. The truth comes at a price. Are you willing to pay it? Sarah hesitated, the weight of the decision pressing down on her. But she nodded, her resolve strengthening. We are. The voice let out a soft sigh, the sound echoing in the stillness of the clearing. Very well. But be warned, the truth may not be what you expect. And with that, the voice faded, the clearing returning to its natural state. The group released their grip on each other's hands, the weight of the encounter sinking in. They had made contact with the spirits of Big Bend. And now, they were on a path to uncovering the truth. But as they made their way back to camp, one thought echoed in their minds. What price would they have to pay? Chapter 6. The Price of Truth. The campsite was bathed in the soft glow of twilight as the group returned, their footsteps heavy with the weight of their encounter. The tent stood silent, a stark contrast to the flurry of activity that had taken place earlier. Leo was the first to break the silence, his voice filled with awe. I can't believe we actually made contact. The legends, they're all true. Clara nodded, her face pale. But at what cost? The spirit warned us that the truth comes at a price. Sarah sat down heavily, the journal clutched tightly in her hand. We need to be prepared for whatever comes our way. We can't let our guard down. Neil, ever the skeptic, raised an eyebrow. What are we supposed to do? Set up a ghost trap? Sarah shot him a pointed look. This isn't a joke, Neil. We're dealing with forces beyond our understanding. The group fell silent, the weight of the situation sinking in. They had ventured into the heart of Big Bend, seeking answers, but now they were faced with a new challenge. As night fell, the group gathered around the campfire, its warmth a welcome respite from the cold. The flames danced and flickered, casting eerie shadows on the surrounding trees. Leo pulled out his guitar, strumming a soft tune that echoed in the stillness of the night. The group listened, lost in the music, the worries of the day fading away. But as the last notes died away, a new sound filled the air. A soft rustling, coming from the edge of the clearing. The group exchanged worried glances, their hearts racing. Sarah stood up, her flashlight in hand. Stay here, she whispered, venturing to the edge of the clearing. The rustling grew louder, more insistent. And then, just as suddenly, it stopped. Sarah's flashlight beam darted around, searching for the source. And then, she saw it. A figure, standing at the edge of the clearing. It was tall, its form indistinct, but its eyes glowed with an eerie light. Sarah's breath caught in her throat. The legends were true. The spirits of Big Bend were real. The figure stood still, watching her. And then, it spoke. Its voice was soft, barely a whisper, but it sent a chill down Sarah's spine. You seek the truth. But are you prepared for the consequences? Sarah swallowed hard, her voice shaky. We just want answers. We mean no harm. The figure seemed to consider her words. And then, it began to fade, its form becoming indistinct, its voice a mere echo. The truth lies within. Seek the heart of Big Bend, and you shall find it. And with that, it was gone, leaving Sarah alone in the clearing. She slowly made her way back to the campsite, her mind racing. The group gathered around, listening intently as she recounted her encounter. "We need to find the heart of Big Bend," she said, determination in her eyes. "It's the key to uncovering the truth." The group nodded in agreement, their resolve strengthening. They would venture deeper into the wilderness, seeking the heart of Big Bend and the answers it held. But as they settled in for the night, one thought echoed in their minds. What price would they have to pay for the truth? Chapter 7. The Heart's Descent. The morning sun filtered through the dense canopy, casting a golden hue over the campsite. Birds chirped in the distance, their melodies a stark contrast to the eerie silence of the previous night. The group was up early, their belongings packed and ready for the day's journey. Sarah consulted the journal, her finger tracing the faded ink of the pages. According to this, the heart of Big Bend is located deep within the forest, in a hidden valley surrounded by towering cliffs. It's said to be a place of power, where the spirits of the land converge. Leo looked skeptical. And we're supposed to find this place based on an old journal? It could be anywhere. Sarah met his gaze, determination in her eyes. We have to try. It's our best shot at getting answers. The group set out, the forest around them growing denser with each step. The path was overgrown, nature reclaiming its territory. But they pressed on, guided by the journal's descriptions and their own intuition. Hours turned into days as they ventured deeper into the wilderness. The landscape changed, the gentle slopes giving way to rugged terrain. Towering cliffs loomed overhead, their sheer faces casting long shadows over the valley below. It was on the third day that they stumbled upon it. A narrow passage, hidden among the rocks. The entrance was barely visible, obscured by thick foliage. But as they ventured inside, the passage opened up, revealing a vast cavern. The walls were lined with ancient carvings, their meanings lost to time. In the center stood a stone altar, its surface worn smooth by the elements. The air was thick with a sense of reverence, the silence broken only by the soft drip of water from the ceiling. Sarah approached the altar, her fingers tracing the intricate patterns carved into the stone. "This is it," she whispered. "The heart of Big Bend." The group gathered around, their eyes wide with awe. The cavern was a place of power, its energy palpable. Leo set up his camera, capturing the haunting beauty of the scene. But as he focused on the altar, his face paled. "Guys," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Look at this." The group gathered around, staring at the camera's display. The image showed the altar, but beside it stood a shadowy figure, its form indistinct but its eyes glowing with an eerie light. The realization hit them like a ton of bricks. They were not alone. A soft whisper filled the air, echoing off the cavern walls. The voice was ancient, its tone filled with sorrow. "You have come seeking answers. But are you prepared for the truth?" Sarah stepped forward, her voice filled with determination. "We are. We want to know what happened here, why the spirits of Big Bend are restless." The voice was silent for a moment, considering her words. And then, it spoke again. "Long ago, this land was sacred. The spirits of the land and the people lived in harmony. But then, outsiders came, seeking power and wealth. They desecrated the land, angering the spirits. A curse was placed upon Big Bend, its secrets hidden from the world." Sarah's heart raced, the weight of the revelation sinking in. How do we lift the curse? How do we bring peace to the spirits of Big Bend? The voice let out a soft sigh, the sound echoing in the stillness of the cavern. The curse can only be lifted by those with pure hearts, who seek the truth for the right reasons. You must prove yourselves worthy, or face the wrath of the spirits. The group exchanged worried glances, the weight of the situation sinking in. They had come seeking answers, but now they were faced with a new challenge. As they made their way out of the cavern, one thought echoed in their minds. Were they worthy of lifting the curse? And what price would they have to pay for the truth? Chapter 8. Trials of the Spirit. The cavern's entrance seemed to close behind them, the weight of the ancient space pressing on their shoulders. The group emerged into the daylight, the sun's rays feeling unusually harsh after the dimness of the cave. They stood in a circle, each processing the revelations and the task ahead. "We need to prove ourselves worthy," Clara murmured, her voice tinged with worry. "But how? What trials await us?" Sarah, clutching the journal, flipped through its pages. There are mentions of trials, tests of character and spirit, each one designed to challenge our intentions and our hearts. Neil scoffed. "Sounds like something out of a fantasy novel. How do we even begin?" Before Sarah could answer, a gust of wind swept through the clearing, rustling the leaves and making the trees whisper. The atmosphere grew dense, and the temperature dropped noticeably. The group huddled closer, sensing that the trials had already begun. From the edge of the clearing, a figure emerged. It was neither solid nor entirely ethereal, a silhouette formed of shadows and mist. Its eyes, however, shone with a clear, piercing light. "You seek to lift the curse," the figure intoned, its voice echoing around them. "To do so, you must face 3 trials. Fail, and you shall remain trapped in Big Bend, forever a part of its haunted legacy." Sarah stepped forward, determination in her eyes. "We're ready." The shadowy figure nodded. "Your first trial is one of courage. Deep within the forest lies the Lake of Whispers. You must retrieve a stone from its depths. But be warned, the lake is not what it seems." Without another word, the figure dissipated, leaving the group in stunned silence. Leo, ever the voice of reason, broke the silence. "We should set up camp here for the night. We'll need our strength for what lies ahead." The group agreed, and soon, tents were pitched, and a fire was crackling. As night fell, the forest around them came alive with sounds. But amidst the natural chorus, there were other noises, whispers, soft footfalls, and distant cries. The spirits of Big Bend were watching. The next morning, guided by the journal's descriptions and their own intuition, they set out for the Lake of Whispers. The journey was arduous, the forest dense and the path treacherous. But after several hours, they reached a clearing, and before them lay a vast, still lake. Its surface was like glass, perfectly reflecting the sky above, but its depths were dark and inscrutable. Sarah approached the water's edge, the journal's words echoing in her mind. "The lake will test your courage, for beneath its calm surface lie the memories of all who have come before." Taking a deep breath, she waded into the water. It was icy cold, sending shivers up her spine. As she ventured deeper, the world around her began to change. The clear day turned to twilight, and the still water became turbulent. Images flashed before her eyes, memories of past explorers, their hopes, fears, and ultimately, their fates. She saw their challenges, their failures, and the price they paid. The weight of their collective experiences threatened to pull her under. But Sarah pressed on, her determination unwavering. She dove deeper, the water growing darker, the pressure increasing. And then, she saw it, a stone, glowing faintly amidst the darkness. With the last of her strength, she grabbed it and pushed upwards, breaking the surface and gasping for air. The world returned to normal, the lake once again calm and the day bright. The group rushed to her side, relief evident on their faces. Sarah held up the stone, its glow a testament to their first successful trial. But as they made their way back to camp, one thought weighed heavily on their minds. 2 more trials awaited, and the challenges would only grow greater. Chapter 9. The Labyrinth of Shadows. The campfire's glow was the only source of light as night enveloped the forest. The group sat in a circle, the stone from the Lake of Whispers placed in the center, its soft luminescence casting eerie shadows on their faces. Sarah, her clothes still damp, shivered as she recounted her experience in the lake. The memories of those who came before us. It was overwhelming. But we've passed the first trial. We can face whatever comes next. Neil, poking the fire with a stick, looked up. So, what's the next trial? Before Sarah could consult the journal, the familiar cold gust of wind swept through the campsite. The shadowy figure materialized once more, its presence more tangible than before. You have shown courage, it intoned. But courage alone is not enough. Your next trial is one of wisdom. Deep within the forest lies the labyrinth of shadows. You must navigate its twists and turns and retrieve the crystal of insight from its center. But be warned, the labyrinth is ever-changing, and not all paths lead to the end. The figure faded, leaving behind an oppressive silence. Clara, her face pale, whispered, "A labyrinth? How are we supposed to navigate something that's always changing?" Leo, ever the optimist, replied, "We'll find a way." We always do. The next morning, armed with supplies and determination, the group set out. The forest seemed denser, the trees towering and imposing. Birds' calls echoed eerily, and the atmosphere was thick with anticipation. After hours of trekking, they stumbled upon an entrance, a massive archway made of intertwined roots and branches, the darkness within impenetrable. Sarah took a deep breath. This is it. The labyrinth of shadows. They entered cautiously, the darkness enveloping them. Almost immediately, the path forked. And then forked again. And again. The labyrinth lived up to its name, a maze of endless corridors and dead ends. Hours turned into days. The group relied on their wits, marking their path, trying to decipher the labyrinth's logic. But it seemed to have none. Paths changed, corridors shifted, and more than once, they found themselves back where they started. Despair began to set in. Food and water supplies dwindled. Fatigue clouded their judgment. Arguments broke out, the stress of the situation taking its toll. On the 3rd day, as hope seemed lost, Clara, while resting against a wall, noticed something, a faint shimmer, barely visible. She called the group over, her excitement palpable. "It's a pattern," she exclaimed. "The walls. They're embedded with crystals. They must be showing us the way." Sarah, her energy renewed, examined the walls closely. She's right. The crystals are more concentrated in certain directions. They're guiding us. With renewed vigor, they followed the crystal trail. The path became clearer, the way forward more evident. And then, after what felt like an eternity, they emerged into a vast chamber. In its center stood a pedestal, and atop it, the crystal of insight, its facets reflecting the dim light. Leo approached it cautiously, his hand outstretched. As he touched it, a rush of images flooded his mind, the history of Big Bend, the spirits, the curse, and the way to lift it. The weight of the knowledge was immense, but he held on, committing it to memory. As he withdrew his hand, the chamber began to shake. The walls crumbled, the ceiling collapsed, and the labyrinth seemed to be imploding. The group rushed out, narrowly escaping as the entrance sealed behind them. They emerged into daylight, the forest around them eerily silent. The trials had taken their toll, but they were one step closer to their goal. Sarah, looking at Leo, asked, "Did you see it? Do you know how to lift the curse?" Leo, his face pale, nodded. "I do. But it won't be easy." The final trial awaits. Chapter 10. The Soul's Sacrifice. The forest was alive with the sounds of nature, but to the group, each rustle and chirp seemed to carry a hidden message, a whisper of the trials they had faced and those yet to come. Their journey had taken them deep into the heart of Big Bend, and as they set up camp for the night, the weight of their mission pressed heavily upon them. Leo, still reeling from the rush of knowledge he had received from the crystal of insight, sat apart from the group, his gaze distant. The firelight flickered across his face, revealing the deep lines of worry etched into his features. Sarah approached him, her concern evident. "Leo, talk to me. What did you see?" He looked up, his eyes haunted. "The final trial. It's not like the others. It's not a test of courage or wisdom. It's a test of the soul." She sat down beside him, taking his hand. "What do we have to do?" He took a deep breath, choosing his words carefully. "The curse on Big Bend can only be lifted by a pure soul, one willing to make the ultimate sacrifice." Sarah's heart raced, the implications of his words sinking in. "You mean?" Quote. He nodded, his voice barely above a whisper. "One of us has to stay behind, forever bound to the spirits of Big Bend." The weight of the revelation hung in the air, the gravity of their mission becoming all too real. They had come seeking answers, but the price of those answers was higher than any of them had imagined. The group gathered around the fire, the warmth a stark contrast to the chill in the air. They discussed their options, debating the best course of action. But as the night wore on, one thing became clear: the decision would not be an easy one. Morning dawned, the first rays of sunlight piercing the canopy above. The group packed up their belongings, their movements mechanical, the weight of the upcoming trial pressing down on them. They ventured deeper into the forest, guided by the knowledge Leo had gained from the crystal. The landscape changed, the dense forest giving way to a vast clearing. At its center stood an ancient tree, its roots deep and its branches reaching towards the sky. Leo approached the tree, his steps hesitant. "This is it," he murmured. "The Tree of Souls. The final trial." The group gathered around, their faces pale, their hearts heavy. One by one, they approached the tree, placing a hand on its trunk, feeling its ancient energy. Hours passed, the sun moving across the sky, casting long shadows on the ground. And then, as the first stars began to appear, Clara stepped forward. "I'll do it," she said, her voice filled with resolve. "I'll stay behind." The group protested, their voices filled with anguish. But Clara was adamant. "It has to be me. I've always felt a connection to this place, to its spirits. This is my destiny." Sarah hugged her tightly, tears streaming down her face. "Are you sure?" Clara nodded, her eyes filled with determination. "It's the only way." She approached the tree, placing both hands on its trunk. A soft glow enveloped her, the tree's energy merging with her own. The group watched in awe as she became one with the tree, her form fading, her essence forever bound to Big Bend. The curse was lifted, the spirits of Big Bend finally at peace. But the price had been high. The group made their way out of the forest, their steps heavy, their hearts filled with a mix of relief and sorrow. They had found the answers they sought, but they had also lost one of their own. As they emerged from the forest, the sun setting on the horizon, one thing was clear: their journey had changed them forever. They would carry the memories of Big Bend with them, a testament to the power of the human spirit and the sacrifices one must make in the pursuit of truth. Chapter 11. Echoes of the past. The world outside Big Bend seemed almost alien to the group as they made their way back to civilization. The bustling towns, the noise of traffic, the hum of daily life, it all felt distant and surreal. They had ventured into the heart of the wilderness, faced unimaginable trials, and returned changed. Sarah sat in a quiet corner of a local diner, the journal open before her. The pages, once filled with mystery and intrigue, now held answers that had come at a great cost. She traced the faded ink with her fingers, lost in thought. Neil slid into the seat opposite her, a steaming cup of coffee in hand. "You okay?" he asked, concern evident in his eyes. She looked up, her gaze distant. "Just thinking about everything we've been through." "About Clara." He nodded, taking a sip of his coffee. "It's hard to believe it's over. That we actually did it." Sarah closed the journal, her fingers lingering on the cover. "But at what cost? We found the answers we were looking for, but we lost one of our own." Neil reached across the table, taking her hand. "Clara made her choice. She believed it was her destiny. We have to respect that." Sarah sighed, her gaze drifting to the window. The sun was setting, casting long shadows on the street outside. "I just wish there was another way." The two sat in silence, lost in their thoughts. The diner around them buzzed with activity, but they were in a world of their own. Suddenly, a soft chime broke the silence. Sarah reached into her bag, pulling out a small device. It was a voice recorder, one they had used to document their journey. She pressed play, and a familiar voice filled the air. Clara's voice. "Hey, guys. If you're listening to this, then you know what's happened. I want you to know that I'm at peace with my decision. Big Bend has always held a special place in my heart, and now, I get to be a part of it forever." Tears filled Sarah's eyes as she listened, her heart aching with a mix of sorrow and pride. "I want you all to remember the good times, the laughter, the adventures. And most importantly, I want you to remember the power of the human spirit, the sacrifices we make for the greater good. I love you all." The recording ended, leaving behind a heavy silence. Sarah and Neil sat, hand in hand, tears streaming down their faces. The weight of their journey, the sacrifices they had made, the lessons they had learned, it all came flooding back. They had ventured into the heart of Big Bend, seeking answers, and had returned with so much more. As they left the diner, the night sky overhead, one thing was clear: their journey was far from over. The spirits of Big Bend would always be with them, guiding them, reminding them of the power of the human spirit and the sacrifices one must make in the pursuit of truth. And as they drove away, the whispers of the wilderness echoed in their ears, a testament to the adventures they had shared and the memories they would carry with them forever. Chapter 12. Veil Between Worlds. The days following their return from Big Bend were a blur for Sarah and the group. The world outside seemed to move at a frenetic pace, while they felt trapped in a slow-motion replay of their harrowing journey. The loss of Clara weighed heavily on their hearts, and the memories of the trials they faced haunted their dreams. Sarah found herself drawn to the journal, poring over its pages in search of some hidden meaning, some clue that might hint at a way to bring Clara back. The ancient text spoke of rituals, ceremonies, and rites used by the indigenous people to communicate with the spirits of Big Bend. One passage, in particular, caught her eye. When the moon is full and the stars align, the veil between worlds grows thin. With the right incantations and offerings, one can pierce this veil and speak to those who have passed on. A plan began to form in Sarah's mind. If there was even the slightest chance they could communicate with Clara, they had to try. She gathered the group, sharing her findings. Leo, ever the skeptic, raised an eyebrow. "You want to perform a séance? In Big Bend?" Sarah nodded, determination in her eyes. "It's our best shot at getting some closure, at saying a proper goodbye." The group was hesitant, the memories of their last trip still fresh in their minds. But the thought of speaking to Clara, of hearing her voice one last time, was too tempting to resist. They made their way back to Big Bend, the familiar landscape both comforting and eerie. The full moon hung low in the sky, casting a silvery glow over the wilderness. They set up camp in the clearing where they had last seen Clara, the ancient tree standing sentinel in the center. Sarah began to set up the ritual, placing candles in a circle, burning sage, and chanting incantations from the journal. The air grew thick with tension, the forest around them falling silent. As the ritual reached its climax, a gust of wind swept through the clearing, extinguishing the candles. The group sat in darkness, their breaths held, waiting. And then, a voice broke the silence. Clara's voice. "Sarah? Leo? Is that you?" Tears streamed down Sarah's face as she replied, "Clara. It's us. We miss you so much." Clara's voice was soft, filled with warmth. "I miss you too. But I'm at peace here, with the spirits of Big Bend. I'm watching over you, always." The group spoke with Clara, sharing memories, laughing, crying, and saying their goodbyes. The weight of their journey, the pain of their loss, was eased by the knowledge that Clara was at peace. As dawn broke, the connection began to fade. Clara's voice grew distant, the veil between worlds thickening once more. "Remember me," she whispered, her voice echoing in the stillness. "And remember the power of the human spirit. The sacrifices we make, the love we share, it's all worth it. I love you all." The group sat in silence, the first rays of sunlight filtering through the trees. They had ventured into the heart of Big Bend once more, seeking closure, and had found so much more. As they packed up their belongings, the memories of their journey fresh in their minds, one thing was clear. The spirits of Big Bend would always be with them, guiding them, reminding them of the power of love, sacrifice, and the human spirit. And as they made their way out of the wilderness, the whispers of the forest echoed in their ears, a testament to the adventures they had shared, the lessons they had learned, and the memories they would carry with them, forever. Chapter 13. The unraveling thread. The world outside Big Bend had continued its relentless march forward, but for Sarah and the group, time seemed to have taken on a different dimension. The boundaries between the past, present, and the ethereal had blurred, leaving them in a state of perpetual liminality. Sarah's apartment had become a sanctuary of sorts, the walls lined with notes, maps, and sketches detailing their experiences in Big Bend. The journal, now worn and frayed from constant use, lay open on her desk. Its cryptic passages, once a source of mystery and intrigue, now felt like a lifeline to another realm. One evening, as a storm raged outside, the group gathered around Sarah's dining table. The room was dimly lit, the flickering candles casting dancing shadows on the walls. Neil, ever the pragmatist, broke the silence. We can't keep doing this. We can't keep living in the past. Sarah looked up, her eyes red-rimmed from lack of sleep. We owe it to Clara. We owe it to ourselves to understand what happened. Leo, his face etched with concern, placed a hand on Sarah's shoulder. We all miss Clara. But this obsession, it's not healthy. Sarah's voice trembled with emotion. There's more to the story. I can feel it. The journal. It's trying to tell us something. As if on cue, a gust of wind blew through the room, extinguishing the candles. The apartment plunged into darkness, the only sound the howling of the wind and the distant rumble of thunder. And then, a voice. Soft, ethereal, almost a whisper. Seek the thread that binds the worlds. Unravel it, and all will be revealed. The group sat in stunned silence, the weight of the message sinking in. The voice, while unfamiliar, carried an air of authority, of ancient wisdom. Sarah, her resolve strengthened, turned to the group. We need to go back. One last time. The journey back to Big Bend was filled with a sense of urgency. The wilderness, once a place of wonder and mystery, now felt foreboding, the shadows deeper, the silence more profound. Guided by the voice's message, they made their way to the ancient tree, the Tree of Souls. Its gnarled branches reached out like skeletal fingers, the ground around it littered with fallen leaves. Sarah approached the tree, her fingers tracing the intricate patterns on its bark. And then, she found it. A single thread, almost invisible to the naked eye, woven into the very fabric of the tree. She tugged gently, and the thread began to unravel, revealing a tapestry of memories, experiences, and emotions. The group watched in awe as the story of Big Bend unfolded before them. They saw the indigenous tribes, their deep connection to the land, their rituals and ceremonies. They witnessed the arrival of settlers, the clash of cultures, the bloodshed, and the pain. And they saw Clara, her spirit intertwined with the very essence of Big Bend, watching over them, guiding them. As the thread continued to unravel, the boundaries between worlds began to blur. The group found themselves transported to another realm, a place where time stood still, and the spirits of Big Bend roamed freely. They were greeted by the shadowy figure, its form now more defined, its presence more tangible. You have come seeking answers, it intoned. And answers you shall receive. The group was shown the true nature of Big Bend, the delicate balance between the physical and spiritual realms, the sacrifices made to maintain this balance, and the role they played in the grand tapestry of existence. As the vision faded, they found themselves back at the Tree of Souls, the thread now fully unraveled, the tapestry complete. Sarah, tears streaming down her face, turned to the group. We were chosen. Our journey, our experiences, they were all part of a greater plan. Leo, his voice filled with wonder, replied, Big Bend is more than just a place. It's a living, breathing entity, with its own desires, its own needs. Neil, ever the voice of reason, added, and we played a role in its story. We were part of something bigger than ourselves. The group made their way out of the wilderness, the weight of their journey, the lessons they had learned, and the memories they had created, forever etched in their hearts. As they left Big Bend behind, one thing was clear, their journey had come full circle. They had ventured into the heart of the wilderness seeking answers and had returned with so much more. They had discovered the true nature of Big Bend, the power of the human spirit, and the sacrifices one must make in the pursuit of truth. And as they drove away, the whispers of the wilderness echoed in their ears, a testament to the adventures they had shared, the lessons they had learned, and the memories they would carry with them forever. Chapter 14. The Labyrinth Below. The days following their ethereal journey were a haze of disbelief and introspection. The group had touched the very fabric of existence, seen the interwoven tapestry of life and death, and it had left them profoundly changed. But as the days turned into weeks, a nagging feeling began to gnaw at Sarah's mind. The journal, though instrumental in their quest, still held one last secret. Late one evening, as the city outside was lulled into a quiet hum, Sarah sat in her dimly lit study, the journal sprawled open. A single passage, written in an almost frantic hand, stood out. Beneath the roots, where shadows creep, lies a labyrinth, dark and deep. Seek the heart, and you shall find a truth that transcends space and time. The words seemed to pulse with an urgency, beckoning her to delve deeper. Sarah knew what she had to do. The next morning, she called the group together. "We're not done," she began, her voice firm. "There's something beneath Big Bend, something the journal alludes to. A labyrinth." Leo, ever the voice of caution, frowned. "Sarah, we've already risked so much. Are you sure about this?" She nodded, determination burning in her eyes. "We've come this far. We owe it to ourselves, to Clara, to see this through." The group, bound by their shared experiences and the mysteries they had unraveled, agreed. They would venture once more into the heart of Big Bend. Upon their return, the wilderness greeted them like an old friend, its familiar sights and sounds a bittersweet reminder of their past adventures. Guided by the cryptic passage, they made their way to the Tree of Souls. Its towering presence seemed even more imposing, its roots snaking into the earth, hinting at the secrets below. With Leo leading the way, they began to dig. Hours turned into days, their hands blistered, their bodies weary, but their spirits undeterred. And then, just as hope began to wane, Leo's shovel struck something solid. Clearing the dirt away revealed an ancient stone doorway, its surface etched with symbols that mirrored those in the journal. With bated breath, they opened the door, revealing a descending staircase that disappeared into the inky blackness below. Torches in hand, they began their descent, the air growing colder, the silence more profound. The staircase opened into a vast underground chamber, its walls lined with intricate carvings that told the story of Big Bend. At the center stood a massive stone pedestal, atop which rested a crystalline heart, its facets reflecting the torchlight in a mesmerizing dance. Sarah approached, the journal's words echoing in her mind. "Seek the heart, and you shall find." Quote. As her fingers brushed the crystal, a rush of memories flooded her senses. She saw the indigenous tribes, their deep reverence for the land, their rituals that celebrated the delicate balance of life and death. She saw the settlers, their insatiable greed, their disregard for the sacred. And she saw herself and her friends, their journey, their sacrifices, their unwavering determination. But alongside these memories was a darkness, a malevolent force that sought to disrupt the balance, to plunge Big Bend into eternal night. This was the true nature of the Shadow Walker, a manifestation of humanity's worst impulses. The group, sensing the danger, rallied around Sarah, their combined strength pushing back against the darkness. The chamber began to shake, the walls crumbling, the ceiling threatening to cave in. With a final surge of energy, they channeled their collective will into the crystal heart, its glow intensifying, piercing the darkness, restoring the balance. As the dust settled, the group found themselves back at the base of the Tree of Souls, the doorway sealed, the labyrinth below lost to time once more. They had faced the very essence of darkness and emerged victorious, their bond stronger than ever. The mysteries of Big Bend, though vast and complex, had been unraveled, the balance restored. As they made their way out of the wilderness, the sun setting on the horizon, one thing was clear. Their journey had been one of discovery, of growth, of understanding the delicate balance of life and death. And as they drove away, the whispers of the wilderness echoed in their ears, a testament to the adventures they had shared, the lessons they had learned, and the memories they would carry with them, forever. Chapter 15. The Unseen Observer. The city lights seemed harsher, more artificial, after the group's return from Big Bend. The cacophony of urban life was a stark contrast to the haunting silence of the wilderness. But for Sarah, the city's noise couldn't drown out the whispers that still echoed in her ears. She found herself wandering the streets late at night, the journal clutched tightly in her hand. The labyrinth, the crystalline heart, the memories, they all felt like fragments of a dream, yet the weight of their reality pressed heavily on her. One evening, as the city was shrouded in a thick fog, Sarah felt an inexplicable pull towards an old, abandoned building. Its once grand facade was now marred by time, its windows broken, its walls covered in graffiti. But as she approached, she could make out a faint inscription above the entrance, the Athenaeum. Pushing open the creaky doors, Sarah stepped into a vast hall, its high ceilings adorned with intricate frescoes, its walls lined with shelves upon shelves of books. The air was thick with the scent of old paper and dust. Drawn by an unseen force, Sarah made her way to the back of the hall, where a grand staircase led to a mezzanine. And there, amidst the shadows, stood a figure, tall, cloaked, its face obscured by a hood. Sarah's heart raced, memories of the shadow walker flooding back. But this figure was different, its presence less malevolent, more curious. "You seek answers," the figure intoned, its voice echoing through the hall. Sarah nodded, clutching the journal tighter. "Who are you?" The figure stepped into the light, revealing an old man, his face lined with age, his eyes a deep shade of blue. "I am the keeper of secrets, the guardian of the Athenaeum. And you, Sarah, have been chosen." Sarah frowned, confusion clouding her mind. "Chosen? For what?" The keeper gestured to the shelves around them. "The stories of Big Bend are but a fraction of the mysteries that exist in this world. The Athenaeum holds the collective knowledge of the ages, and you, with your unique connection to the spirits, have been chosen to continue its legacy." Sarah, still reeling from the revelation, took a moment to gather her thoughts. "Why me? Why now?" The keeper, his gaze unwavering, replied, "The balance between the physical and spiritual realms is delicate, constantly shifting. Your journey, your experiences, have prepared you for this role. The Athenaeum needs a guardian, someone who understands the intricacies of this balance, someone who can protect its secrets." Sarah, her resolve strengthened, nodded. "I accept." The keeper, a smile playing on his lips, handed her a key. "Welcome, guardian." As Sarah made her way out of the Athenaeum, the weight of her new responsibility pressing heavily on her shoulders, she felt a sense of purpose, a clarity she had never felt before. The mysteries of Big Bend, the trials she and her friends had faced, had all been leading up to this moment. She knew the path ahead would be fraught with challenges, with dangers she couldn't yet fathom. But she also knew she wouldn't be alone. The spirits of Big Bend, the memories of her journey, the lessons she had learned, they would all be with her, guiding her, protecting her. And as she stepped out into the fog-shrouded streets, the city lights casting long shadows, one thing was clear: her journey was far from over. The whispers of the wilderness, the echoes of the past, the secrets of the Athenaeum, they would all be a part of her story, a testament to the power of the human spirit, the sacrifices one must make in the pursuit of truth, and the memories that bind us all. We hope you have enjoyed our Big Ben's Shadow Walker paranormal ghost story genre. Please visit us at Paranormal Untold Stories. Come to listen to more of our scary stories collection. Paranormal Untold Stories encourages you to contact us if you have your own untold story that you would like our professionals team to put online as a scary story. Thank you. Please follow our YouTube channel, Paranormal Untold Stories, and encourage others to do the same. Paranormal Untold Stories.